Hey everyone there in Physics 40S land, it's Dr. Carroll. It's lecture number 2, unit 7, all about currents, and today's focus is on networks of resistors. So in your booklet, it's on page 33 near the bottom. So we're going to try a few in the booklet, and then I'm going to go onto the tablet and try some on the fly that we've never seen before to make it more exciting. So in a network of resistor, you have both series and parallel segments together. And the tip is to reduce the parallel segments first and then deal with making everything into series. So how does it all work? We're going to use the severe diagram again. So we have example 1. We are given 4.55 amps. So you got 4.55 amps is your original current and a voltage of 100 amps. And so you have to find everything else. And now I realize that no, you aren't given the 4.55 amps. You're going to solve for the 4.55 amps. You're given the resistances here, 10, 20, 30, and 12 for resistor 1, 2, 3, and the total, and then resistor 2, 3. So what is that all about? So let's go back to the original drawing here, and the game starts by, let's say, okay, excuse me, resistor 2 and resistor 3 are in parallel, so I can get the equivalent resistance of resistor 2 and 3, and I can call that R23. And because it's in parallel, I have this equation here. 1 over R23 is 1 over R2 plus 1 over R3. So 1 over 20 plus 1 over 30, and then R23 is the reciprocal of that, which is 12. Okay? So then I've got 12 plus 10, so I've got 22 ohms in total. Okay? So I got 12 and 10, so 22, and then R23 is 12, good. I now add that to the 10, and I get 22 for my overall resistance. And once I got the 22, then I can do I is V over R. So 100 divided by 22, which is 4.55. Okay, so you do this reduction process. Here I'm reducing the original network circuit 2 times. And some students don't like to do this. Oh, it's a waste of time. Well, no, it's not a waste of time. It's a way to organize what's going on. Because once you reduce it, then we work backwards and we say, okay, the equivalent resistance is 4.55 amps, which means R23, which is a fictitious resistor. I know it doesn't really exist, but it is created to help you solve the problem. That has 4.55 amps flowing through it, and R1 also has 4.55 amps flowing through it. Knowing that, and knowing the resistance, I can now get the voltage across resistor 1, so it's 4.55 times 10, or 45.5 amps, and the voltage across R23, which is 12 times 4.55, 54.6. Notice that R1 and R23, you add them together, and you get 100 ohms. Now, what about the R2 and R3 individually? Well, R23 was the equivalent resistance of R2 and R3, so the voltage drop across R2 and the voltage drop across R3 will also be the same as the voltage drop across R23. So the voltage drop across R2 is 54.6, the voltage drop across R3 is 54.6, and once we get that, I can get the current, V over R. Notice that if I add the currents together, R2 and R3, I get 4.55. So you go in with 4.55 into branch R2 and R3, and you come out with 4.55. So this is the simplest kind of network where there's just 3 resistors, but it still is, there are some tricks and turns to it, so, excuse me, so you got to deal with that. Okay, I'm turning the page now to page 34. And let's take a look at another one. Here we have 3 resistors in a network. Now I'm looking and say, how come there's not one in series first? Well, okay, I go to a junction point, and now I have one branch which has 2 resistors in them, R1 and R2, and one branch that has R3. So let's circle what we've been given here. I think we're given the voltage, which is 30, and the resistors R1, R2, and R3, and then we got to complete the severe chart. So first of all, R1 and R2 are in one of the branches. Now they're in series within a branch, so we can do that right away. R1 and R2 is going to be 2 and 3, 5. So my equivalent resistance R12 is 5. So now that 5 ohms is in parallel with the 4 ohm resistor in R3. So I can take the reciprocal of that and get R123 in this relation. So 1 over 4 plus 1 over 5, 9 over 20, so R is 2.222. So R123, which is the final resistance, is our total, is, what did we say, 2.222. So once you get that, then I can get the total current, V over R, so 30 over 2.222, and I get 13.5 amps. And so that means that, what does that mean? Well, let's see. That's helpful to check what's going on. So let's see. The voltage across R3 and R12 have to be the same. And the total voltage was 30. So you have to have 30 across R12 and 30 across R3. I know the resistance, so I can get the current across R3 is 7.5 amp. The current across R12 is 6 amps. Notice how if I add those together, I got 13.5 amps. So I got 13.5 amps going in, 13.5 amps coming out. Okay, now what's next here? The current going through R1 and R2 has to be 6. Why does it have to be 6? Because R12, the resistor in series is 6 amps, so 6 amps has to curse through. Cursing is another way of saying moving through. Has to move through R1 and move through R2. So then the voltage across R1 is 2 times 6 is 12 volts. And across R2 is 3 times 6, which is 18 volts. So 12 plus 18 is 30, which it must be, right? Because the equivalent resistance R12 is 30, so it's 30 volts associated with that equivalent resistance. So the voltage across R1 plus the voltage across R2 has to be 30. And there it is. That is the completed example 2. Okay, let's look at a fancier one here. Example 3. Let me just draw a line here to keep ourselves separated from everything. There we go. So here I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 resistors. Wow, that's a lot of resistors, isn't it? And I've decided they should all be 2 ohms. And my total voltage is 50. So my total voltage is 50. And the resistor across each one is 2 ohms. Let's separate these questions. So, what can we do here? Well, R3 and R4 are in parallel, so I can get the equivalent branch of that. So 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 is 1 over our total. So R3 is R34 is not even listed. There it is. It's 4, really? 1 over R34 is 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2. So that's 1. So R34 should be 1. And why is it saying 4? Let's think for a second. We started all with 2. R3 is 2, R4 is 2. Oh, R3 and R4 are not in parallel, they're in series. See how I modeled that for you? Because I know that students get tripped up on that. R3 and 4 are in series within a parallel branch. So their total resistance is 4 ohms. And R5, 6, that total resistance is 4 ohms because they're each in series in a branch. Now I can get the parallel equivalent resistance. So it'll be 1 over 4 plus 1 over 4, which is 2 over 4. Take the reciprocal of that, and that's 2. So R3, 4, 5, 6, that parallel resistance is 2. Now R1 was 2. I don't want to do that R1, 2 part. R1 is 2, R2 is 2, and R3, 4, 5, 6 is 2. So add those together. So my total resistance is 6 ohms. I know the voltage, so now I can get the current flowing through. It's 8.33. 50 divided by 6, 8.33 is flowing through R3, 4, 5, 6 and R yeah, okay, fine. I guess I can write it as R1, 2 if I want. But it's flowing through R1 and R2 are each 16.67. In fact, I don't need it to write it like that. Let's write it like this, R1 and R2. Let's not make it extra complicated. So R1 is 2, R2 is 2, R3, 4, 5, 6 is 2 for the resistances. The voltages are 16.67 for all of them. Notice that that will add together to give you 50. And now we just spin it around backwards here. R34 is going to have half of the voltage, so 8.33, 8.33. R5 and R6 are going to be the same, 8.33, 8.33, because the total 16.67 across both branch 3-4 and branch 5-6. And so once I know the voltages, I can get the currents through all of them. So that was example 3. Let's look at example 4 here. And here we have so your conventional currents going this way. We come across a junction point and then another junction point. So we have R1 and R2 are parallel to each other. R3 and R4 are parallel to each other. So I can reduce down and get an R12 and an R34 equivalent resistance, and then I can get the total resistance from there. So we're given here R1 is 10 ohms, R2 is 40 ohms, R3 is 20 ohms. And we have to, this is an interesting one. We have to find resistor 4. We have the answer there, 20, but that was the one we were supposed to find. Now they give us the total voltage is 9 volts, and they give us 500 milliamps for the current, which is the total current, 0.5 amps. So I can get if I know the voltage is 9 volts, and the total current is half an amp, then R is V over I, right? R is V over I, V equals IR. So 9 divided by a half, which is 18 ohms, is my total resistance. Okay, so now let's keep looking here. Well, if R1 and R2 gives me 8 ohms, and R3 and R4, R3, the equivalent resistance of that is 10, okay, by doing the reciprocal, then good, that adds up to 18. And so how else do we do this? Let's see what else we can do here. We have R12 and R34 are both 0.5 amps because the total is 0.5 and they are in series, so I can get the voltage 4 and 5 volts. So then across R12 both voltages are 4, across R3 both voltages are 5, and then the current V over R, so 0.4 and 0.1, which equals 0.5, the total, good. And the other one, R3 is 20 ohms, so my current is 5 over 20 is 0.25. And if the total has to be 0.5, which it does, then the current through the other resistor R4 has to be 0.25, which means the resistor has to be the same as R3, which is 20. So that one's a bit more involved, but it's a good one to do. Okay, now I'm going to do something really exciting here. I'm going to go to a different program, paint.net, which is going to give me a free canvas here, and I'm just going to make one up on the fly here. Okay, so here's my voltage. Here's one resistor, and then I'm going to have another one, and then I'm going to have one here. So let's say the total voltage is 50, and just make up a number. Okay, what did Sophie say? 10, okay. Oh, and Sydney said R2 is 20, good. And Lisa said R3 is 30, good. And let's make R4 here. Okay, and Shujan said R4 is 40. Thank you, Sophie, Lisa, Sydney, and Shujan for giving me those numbers. Okay, so I want to solve the circuit here. So I reduce it down to, I got to write smaller, don't I, to get it all in here. 10 ohms, and then the equivalent resistance, R23, and then I got R4, which is 40. Now I'm not going to write everything in here. R23, so that's going to be 1 over 20 plus 1 over 30. I'm just punching it on my calculator here. 1 divided by 20 plus 1 divided by 30, and then take the reciprocal of that, and I get 12, right? It's less than each of those. So then I can squeeze in here so that the equivalent resistance is 10 plus 12 plus 40, 50 plus 12, 62. And the voltage was 50. So now making my severe chart, circuit item, V, I, R. You know, there's actually some rulers on here on this program that I could use, but I didn't. R1, R2, R3, R4, and then I'd have R2, 3, and then R total, which is R1, 2, 3, 4. So the voltage is 50. The overall resistance was 62. So then my current I is V over R, 50 divided by 62.806. I'm going to go to 3 decimals so we don't round off too much. And okay, so R1 was 10. You told me it was 10. R2 was 20. R3 is 30. R4 is 40. R23 is 12. Okay, and I know that R1, R23, and R4 are all in series, so they all have the same current. So R1 is 0.806. R2 is, I'm not sure yet. R23 is 0.806. R4 is 0.806. So those are all 0.806. And now I can get the voltage, 8.06 across R1, and 0.806 times 40 is 32.24 across R4, and R23 is 0.806 times 12, it's 9.672. So I got 8.06, 9.672 plus 32.24 plus 8.06 is 49.97, which is roughly 50. And then I'm going to have the voltage across R2 and the voltage across R3. Now, how am I going to do that? Well, they're the same as the voltage across R23, right? They're in parallel with it. So 9.672 and 9.672 across R3. So then I is V over R, 9.672 divided by 20, which is 0.484. And the other one is 9.672 over 30, which is 0.322. And 0.484 plus 0.322, 0.806. So that works. So there you go. Hooray! Okay. And I'll find some practice examples. You can look in some booklets and do a few of these. I think Unit 7 package. So that is the story for today. And again, today might be more than one day because these do take some practice on network and series and parallel. So networks, combinations of series and parallel. And next time we're going to look at the laws of resistance and resistivity, work, and power. Okay, so hope you doing some good networking